So the basic things we have covered are the layout designs in Android, and how we can design the layout in the Android. So different types of layout types we have discussed. So linear layout types, and then relative layout types, constraint layout types we have discussed. We can decide which one is best for our application based on the design of the layout as well. Then Kotlin was helpful for us to develop the algorithm on the application. So whenever some button is clicked, or whenever we upload some data into the application, then some task has to be completed. So that task completion will be developed as a certain algorithm using Kotlin language or Java language. So in here, we discussed about how we can use Kotlin language to develop algorithms in the Android app. So basically, we were focusing on Kotlin language. So Kotlin language is a version of the Java as well, which was introduced later and which is currently used in multiple companies to develop their applications. So rather than using Java, most of the time, sometimes currently users use Kotlin language. So there are some, specific, differences between Java language and Kotlin language. So some simplicities there with Kotlin language, which means that we can use fewer command lines to get something done using Kotlin. Some things that helps us to move from one screen to another screen. So we took an example where we designed a recycler view, and the recycler view was used to, display a list of items which can be scrollable. And then also we included intents into these recycler views and enabled multiple screens in the applications. And then binding, we discussed about how we can use binding operation in the application, so that one person can access the resources in the application without calling the r.id and then calling the resource name. Rather than that, we can use binding, which will contain all the information about the resources in the app. And we can use binding as a kind of simpler way of accessing resources in the Kotlin code to work with the resources. So binding is a technique that we learned about. And binding is not to be efficient in accessing the resources in the application. Activity lifecycle is also something we discussed in the last week. So it is also something important to know. So the activity lifecycle has different, methods and functions that will be used to implement the activity in a step-by-step process. So mainly you will have the the creation of activity, and then making it visible, making the activity visible to the users, and then destroying the activity stages inside the life cycle. So those activity life cycles are important in cases where you are building a banking app and you want to include some secret code in some stage of your application. So in some stage, if you want to keep that information secure and not affect the others' application instances, then you need to implement this banking, instance where you enter the secret code inside a certain activity stage. Right? So in the life cycle, in a certain stage, you need to implement this. So you can implement this in on-resume stage, for example. So we discussed about this in the last week, so you can go through that if you prefer. So you need to know like in what stage of the activity we need to implement some sensitive tasks related to the application, so that we don't really allow any other any other application instances to come and get operated at that time. I mean, like once you are typing the secret code, all the rest of the application operations must die down. They would not work unless you apply the correct secret code. So all the rest of the operations of the activity will be subdued once you kind of activate only one activity life cycle stage. So once you are in the one stage, you will be only making that stage active. So that is kind of useful when you're implementing banking apps and sensitive apps. After that, we discussed about the Firebase and how we can upload data from an app to the Firebase backend server. So backend server can give us many services. So the one service will be storing the data that we are uploading to the server, and then doing real-time update of the data, and then analysis of the data can be done. Likewise, there are many services that the Firebase can provide us. So these are the things we have discussed. So we discussed about the Firebase and the major services that it provides. It provides these major services and the advantages. So we discussed about these sections in the last session. So I'm not going to go through them in a detailed manner. So at the end of the last session, we discussed about the fragments and how we can enable fragments in one screen of the activity, and how we can disable one fragment and enable one fragment at one time instance, so that the user can use different the user can have different experiences in the same screen. In the same screen, they can go to different options in the screen. So we can use these kind of fragments in situations where we have a big screen size, and we can enable different activities or different fragments to be enabled in the same screen. So we discussed about the fragments. So in today's class, we will discuss about some things that we were not able to discuss so far, and we will conclude the session with that. So some of the other things that we didn't discuss are about services. So in services, what we mean by that is that the background services that we can provide through our app to our user, while some background task is happening while you're using the application. So what we mean by this is that in certain cases, when you're downloading some document, or you are running some update in the back, sometimes you don't want that activity to disturb your application, right? So in cases where you have like downloading happening at the back of your application, you don't need that to disturb your activity operation. So in such cases, you can enable this services option, and you can enable that to kind of control and manage the background activity happen while you get the work done in the main activity. So what we mean by this is, as I said, like background, tasks running. So it could be like, when you're downloading some stuff in the back, downloading the files in Android app, like we get the messages, right? So we get messages from the application that some downloading is happening. So in that case, you will be able to like get those work done at the background of your application. So and so it will look like a background work that is happening, and it will not affect the main activity of your application. So most of the time, it will be in one. Uh, it will be shown as a message in the top of your application. So I'm trying to find an instance of that. So we can even take this one. So this is an image of downloading, some items or something while you're doing something else, or something else using the phone. So if there are some downloads going on, the progress of that will be shown in this kind of a menu item in the background of your application. So this will happen at the background of your application while you are running the certain app that you want. So some background tasks that are happening are controlled by the services. So we call those background tasks happening as services. So the background tasks that are happening are known as the services. So these are the tasks that will not affect the current work that we are doing with the phone. So it will not interrupt with the ongoing activity. So background tasks that are used by an app, so which means that an app uses these background tasks to do different background work, such as downloading some items, right? Downloading some files from a certain web application. So downloading files such as images, let's say downloading images from a web application or website, downloading images. The downloading of images can happen in the background of your application. If you are using a certain application, that application can allow you to download some images from a website. Once you select that option, the downloading task will be done in the background. It will not affect the current operations that are going on with your application. Also, these services will have their own life cycle. So that means that earlier we discussed about the life cycle of an activity and also of a fragment. So these services will also have their own life cycle. Will be different to the life cycles of the activity or the life cycle of a fragment. So different to the life cycles of the activity or the life cycle of the fragment. So services will have their own life cycle, and that life cycle will determine what kind of activities or what kind of stages that the services will go through once it is created and once it is running and once it is destroyed. So there are different stages that the services life cycle undergoes. So the different stages are basically so different stages of a service life cycle will be basically the on create method. On create method will be called once it is created, and then on start command will be called once it is like running, and once it is triggered to start. So once it is triggered to start, this command will be run, and then on destroy will be called once you like finish the service life cycle and finish the task done in the services. So these are the kind of main stages of the life cycle. So the services are used in the background and they are running in the background to the compared to the main activities. So once a certain service has happened and it is completed, a broadcast message will be sent to the user, and the user can see the broadcast message using a broadcast server. So broadcast the result once the service process is finished. So there will be a notification by these services once the process is completed. The process can be downloading an image. The process can be uploading an image to a website. So such kind of processes can finish, and those finish at the finish moment, a broadcast message will be sent to the user, indicating the completion of the process. So that will be through the users will be indicated that through a broadcast message. After that, so those are the things related to services. So services are also important aspect of your application. So you need to implement services also in your application to make it more interactive with other, other activities or other functions that you want to include in your application. You want to include downloading options, if you want to run some sound clips. So if you want to access the web applications, and if you want to update your software, all those things can be implemented through these services. Any questions up to this point? Any questions up to this point? If you have, let me know right now. So the next section is about like testing, how we can do testing. So testing is also an important part of application development. So once you develop an application, you can go through multiple testing procedures, and you can test whether the application is really running very well or not. So there are mainly three types of tests. So could be the first one will be end-to-end testing. End-to-end testing. So end-to-end testing is a type of testing that you will do to test the application as if as a real use of the application. In cases where you will be you want to deploy the application in the Google Store, Google Play Store, and then you want to test whether that application really works in your phone. So for that, you will be using end-to-end testing. Okay, so let's say you have implemented an application. Now you are downloading that, and then you are using it you are downloading it from, you have published it that in the Google Play Store, and then now you want to download and want to implement or run the application. So during that situation, you will be actually be able to experience the application from your own phone. So in that case, you will see like what are the actual errors that you get in your application, and what are the problems that you face with your application once you use it. So the end-to-end testing is the most complex testing that can be done regarding your application. So this testing will be done using an app, using a mobile, using a phone, and testing the application using the phone. So in this situation, you will face some problems and some things can go wrong. So errors can occur, and due to many reasons, the errors can occur due to some network connection failure. The app might not work. Also, so there are many things that can go wrong once you are first deploying your application to the users. So first time you will face some problems. So network connection failure can be one of the issues. So if you don't have a good network connection to your application, then sometimes some of the functions will not work smoothly. So it could be mainly because the network connectivity is low and it is not connected properly and it's failing, and not because you have, done a wrong code or a bad code. So even if you have built the code properly, sometimes the app might not work because of other things. So API connection also we have to ensure. So sometimes we cannot connect our application with the correct and with the API properly, and then because of that we might not be able to get the app working properly. So likewise, some problems can occur once you are actually deploying the application. So the end-to-end testing will be done in that situation where you're actually implementing the application and then you're making it available for any user to use. So this can be done using a customer, right? So customer will test the testing. It will be the customer or the developer will do the testing as a customer. Another type of testing would be the integration testing. And in there actually you are testing whether your application can interact between two different components in the app. So integration testing is testing whether the application can interact with between two different components in the app. So for example, it means that if you are having data in your application in one place and your views in another place, then you will have to access the data from one location to another location in the application files. So one file will contain the data and another file will access the data or request for the data. So the data should be transferred from one file to another file. So that kind of transition can be done once you have this integration properly done. So the files are not correctly integrated, then the data will not be accessible or integrated with the other files. So integration has to be done properly so that the files are working with each other with a very smooth manner and they are integrated very well, and also there are no errors in there. So integration testing is that. Okay, and lastly we have the unit testing, something called the unit testing. And the unit testing is basically used to test the algorithms and functions that you have implemented. So the test the performance of a certain algorithm, we use the unit testing. we use the unit testing to test the performance of an algorithm. So in there, this performance of the algorithm can be tested singularly, and it might not be required to test the algorithm using Android itself. So you can test the algorithm without using the platform. You can test the algorithm even without using the Android platform. So can run this kind of test even without using the Android framework. So you can run the algorithm in any, preferable environment of your own. And then you can test it. You can run that algorithm in your own preferable environment. Then you can run the algorithm and you can test it. So those are things related to the testing part. So any questions up to that point? So there are other things that we need to cover as well. So these are some things that we were not able to cover in extensive manner, but these are also some things that you might be asked about, and also you need to know with regard to the application development. So in companies who are implementing these application development, they have specific app architectures for developing applications in their own companies. So if they define a certain architecture, the application development will be done according to that architecture. So there are different architectures that are developed or proposed in the by the different companies in the world, and the different companies use their own architecture. So the new developer who comes into developing this application should be aware of this application architecture such that they can develop the codes in that certain specific manner. So the application architecture defines how the codes are organized in the application, and how the structure of the application files are defined, and how they are organized in the development environment. So this application architecture means that it gives us idea about the fundamental structure of the software system, right? So it gives us a fundamental structure of the software system, and it defines the fundamental structure of the software system. So the structure will be defined such that this structure will be defined such that all the logic of the activity, all the logic of the application does not live inside one activity, right? So all the logic of the application does not really included in one script, one code. So in most of our applications that we have developed so far, all those ones are having the activities algorithm, the algorithm of the activity that resides in one code file. So in such kind of cases, you will not be able to, you will not be able to like differentiate what's happening and easily understand what's happening in the application. So you need to go through all the code to understand the operation of the application. So with what we have discussed so far, most of our implementation so far have been where we put all the algorithms into one file. Right? One file runs this algorithm, and then all the logic, all the activities are done in this one file. So sometimes that can be too much for the developers once the application gets more complex. So once the application gets more complex, what we normally prefer to do is that we divide the application algorithm into different chunks. We call the different chunks each and every time we want to use them. So all the logic is not included in one file in most of the cases. So the application architecture actually decides what kind of code can go into what kind of file. So once you decide on this application architecture, those the way that you can organize your code will be defined. So the different architectures will define how you should write the code and what are the limitations of writing, how you can interact with one file and another file. So the kind of defined through this application structure. And then based on the application structure, all the developers will develop the application based on the application structure. So the structure will define how the logic stays inside the application. As I said before, all the logic will not be included in one application, one activity. So the goal is to avoid having all the logic inside a certain activity. So single activity so all the logic will not be living inside a certain single activity or few number of activities. There will be multiple activities available to do small different tasks. So there are many application architectures that are proposed by the companies who are developing the applications. So those application architectures will define how we can develop the code for the application, right? So in this application architecture, all the work will be organized, and the different components in the application can communicate with each other, right? So the proper architecture will allow us to allow the different components in the application to discuss with each other. There are different components in the application. For example, the UI of the application or the Vue layers can talk with other components such as the data repository and also the data classes. So the communication should be allowed between the different components, so that is enabled through the application architecture. Okay, so any questions up to that point? Any questions? Right, so there are many different development of applications. Another type of application development can be the game development, game app development. We didn't discuss about the game app development, but the game app development requires very different tools to develop the game. So game app development is another trending topic, and with the so for that, we don't actually use Android Studio or some, for, I mean, development tool like that. We have different tools to develop game applications. So there are different game applications that are available. So, I mean, game developing applications are there. So anyway, like these are some of the games that are available for mobile applications. So there are different games. So we have the different games like this. So these games are having more features and more like 3D look to it. So this kind of behavior can only be achieved using a different toolkit. So there are different popular toolkits that are proposed. So those kind of toolkits can be used to develop these kind of very highly attractive, 3D looking applications with the 3D views and all. So different applications that allow us to develop these game applications. So ones are very popular as well. So the also the another feature is that these are application development toolkits which develop the application such that this application looks very same in both Android and Apple phones. So there's something called the game engine, which allow us to develop the application. So this game engine is a like a cross-platform uh, developing cross-platform architecture, and it enables us to develop code that is compatible with both Android and Apple iPhones. So those are some things related to game development. So this is something that we did not cover, but these are also some related ideas related to mobile application development. So we have game development. So game development can be done using specific game engines. So some of the popular game engines that are used are Unity, Unreal Engine, and so on. So they have more capabilities of developing physics, of animations, and then animation, likewise just suitable for games. So specific specific game engines like Unity, Unreal Engine have to be used to develop a game application. So these game applications will look very similar in both Apple and Android and iPhones. There are other things also that are related to mobile application development. So there are many cross-platform that allow allow us to develop applications that are compatible with both Apple and Android phones. So there are cross-platform technologies. that allow us to develop applications that work with both um, the Android and Android and Apple applications. So allow app development, which is compatible with both Android and Apple or iOS systems. So some of the technologies that can be used to develop applications that are compatible with both Android and Apple or iOS systems are React Native, Flutter, and so on. So these are some of the cross-platform technologies. So some advantages are there. As I said, they can be used in both phones. So you just need to write one code and you can use this application for both which can be so write one code and develop applications that which can be integrated with both Android and Apple. However, like some disadvantages are also there, and that is why the native development is also used. So, I mean, has the disadvantages is that it has delay. The efficiency might be not that high in these applications which are developed for cross-platform. So there are like some delays or delays that you have to go through once the application is running, which means that the efficiency or the delay will be higher and be higher than the native apps, which run very fast. So the delay can be higher. So the delay can be affecting the user experience. So the disadvantage can be one of that, and also taking permission to publish apps can be challenging once you are using cross-platform technologies. So taking permission from both Android and iOS systems can be challenging, and that might take some time, and then you will be able to face some challenges with getting approvals from the administrations. So those are the things related to cross-platform architectures. So still, like native development is also very popular, mainly because the native app development is developing the application specific to the native OS or the operating system. Or if it is Android, it's Android. If it is Apple, it's Apple. So once you are developing the application specific to that operating system, the application will work very efficiently and without much delay. Okay, so do you have any questions? So if you have any questions, you can let me know. So I need to take your attendance, so please mark your attendance if possible. Thank you. So with regard to the end exam, I will upload a certain sample code, a sample paper to the LMS. You can refer that. If you have any further questions, you can send me an email. I will schedule a meeting with you if you have some specific questions that you want to talk and discuss in person, I will schedule a meeting with you. So with that, I would like to end today's session. So thank you for participating. I will upload a sample paper into the LMS. You can get some idea from that. I wish you that you will be able to do the exam really well.